let's talk about the new video by your man Jimmy the Giant, The Death of the Hipster Subculture. I love Jimmy the Giant's videos, and I thought we got to watch this one together because I feel like this is going to be a bonding moment for us, because the way that metal nerds felt about emo kids in the 2000s, that's how I felt about hipsters from 2005 to 2015 or so. Easily my most disliked group of people. It's just something about hipsters that's just like oil and water to me. You know, anything involving beards and like craft beer and whiskey and fixed gear bikes and vinyl, anything you see in this photo probably enrages me. You know, to the extent that hipsters are still around. I feel like hipsters are mostly dead. They're still with us a little bit, but certainly the hipster boom of that 10-year period or so is over. So I thought, let's see what Jimmy the Giant has to say about it, because he always has good takes on this stuff. You know, maybe we could learn something. And really quick, before we go any further, have you checked out my Patreon? Patrons get early access to all my main channel videos and my podcasts. I also do giveaways sometimes. For example, I just gave away a pair of these Eargasm earplugs. And if you want me to review your music, there's a way to do that as well. All you gotta do is join at the $10 and up level. Then every month I do a call for submissions. If you want me to review something, all you gotta do is drop it in the comments of that post. Then I will review it live on Twitch and post it on Patreon for everyone to see. So if that sounds cool, hit the link in the description of this video, and I appreciate your support.
I'm writing a collection of short stories.
Watch for cyclists, asshole.
Ah, the hipster.
Sorry, I was taking a selfie while shooting a Snapchat, while periscoping that Snapchat, while Instagramming latte art.
Remember the man bun era? Bring back the man bun. Man buns, craft beer, and bacon.
Crying consumerism and conformity. During the 2000s to 2010s, hipster culture soared to great heights, before eventually becoming so popular, it ironically became the one thing it sought to destroy.
It's true, but it kind of always was. I mean, that's my objection. He said it became so popular that it became the one thing it sought to destroy, which has really been my objection about hipsters from the beginning, is that for as much as they pretended to be nonconformist and anti-consumer, really, they were like the ultimate consumers and the ultimate conformists. You know, I'll be curious to see what he says caused the death of the hipster, because I don't know, I feel like they were always that.
Mainstream.
You're not a hipster?
No! Oh my god, no, I hate them.
So whatever happened to the hipster?
No, I'm not a hipster. I feel like nobody would ever refer to themselves as a hipster, but I want to start doing that. I want to start telling people I'm a hipster. You know, people will be like, hey, nice to meet you. So, you know, what brings you here, like at a party? And be like, oh, I'm just a hipster. I'm into like trendy hipster stuff. I'll be the first person to self-identify as a hipster.
The world singing about thrift shops before independent coffee took over the market. The origins of hipster culture actually started all the way back in the 40s with one man in particular.
Hey now, Freddie, what you putting down, old man? You ain't coming on with the right story.
Harry the Hipster Gibson.
That's right, I forgot. The term hipster actually did start back then. I forgot about that.
New York Times dubbed Harry the first hipster of New York. The word hipster itself actually came from the word hepster, which was to describe a person who was in the know about jazz. But it would actually be a typo in a magazine in 1938, which misspelled Cab Calloway's Hepster Dictionary to Hipster Dictionary. But you see,
I don't know why, but for some reason, hipster sounds so much funnier to me. Maybe we should start calling them hipsters now. I don't know.
The hipster of the 1940s wasn't like your Starbucks barista of the 2000s.
What band is this? You've never heard of it.
They're called Infant Annihilator. You wouldn't like it.
In 1957, a book was published by a man called Norman Mailer, in which he identified the hipster subculture as mainly white people integrating into black culture. Hipsters could be found in jazz bars wearing zoot suits.
Well, one thing is still true. Hipsters, a whole lot of white people. That's for sure.
The wider society kind of looked down upon them as these lazy, homeless vagabonds who had developed a very distinct, nihilistic attitude to the world post-World War II. With the sudden realization that the world could end at any given moment due to nuclear warfare, a feeling of...
Fun fact, my grandfather was in the Air Force. This was the test of the first hydrogen bomb. They blew up this island called Bikini Atoll, and my grandfather's job, he was a B-17 pilot, was to fly through this radiation cloud taking readings. Pretty scary shit if you think about it. And surprisingly, he lived to be like 95 or something like that, never got cancer or anything like that. So shout out to my grandfather for flying through this fucking mushroom cloud in a B-17.
existentialism grew, and so did a disillusionment with the idea of conforming to the American ideals.
There's an outlaw with
A disillusionment with conforming to American ideals. I'm not going to conform like that. I'm going to conform like this. This is my issue with hipsters, is they think that you're a conformist if you buy, Wheaties and, Oscar Mayer and blah, 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 blah. And their idea of nonconformity is just buying different brands of shit. That's not nonconformity. That's just a different fucking flavor of conformity.
Conforming to the American ideals.
There's an outlaw without a past, without a future, simply existing for himself at the present moment, regardless of the consequences or regardless of how he acts or reacts upon other people and the community as a whole.
But from here, the hipster kind of fizzled out and arguably evolved.
I mean, at least the hipsters back then were
60s,
nihilists.
70s. And so,
at least they had the balls to be self-destructive nihilists. At least they weren't pussies. At least they were drug addicts.
quietly, the hipsters became a thing of the past. That was until the 2000s.
Got on the train from Cambridge, moved down to East London flat.
In the dark underground of society, a new wave of hipsters were quietly assembling their beard combs and fisherman beanies. As middle-class white people escaped their sheltered, comfortable upbringing, as they started to move into lower-income areas such as Williamsburg and Brooklyn, Shoreditch.
That's right. It's kind of ironic that hipsters are the kind of people who complain a lot about gentrification, but they are the actual agents of gentrification, right? Like, nobody complains more about gentrification than gentrifiers. I never understood it. Like, the people who complain about Williamsburg changing are the ones who fucking changed it.
Williamsburg in Brooklyn, Shoreditch in London, Silver Lake in LA, and Berlin's Nikon. Enrolling in gender studies whilst half-arsing a career as a painter, this new wave of hipsters were living counter to the expectations of mainstream society. And they carried with them an ideology of rejecting traditionalism, rejecting capitalism, and rejecting consumerism.
But were they rejecting capitalism or consumerism? I don't think they were. Again, like, buying, craft beer and expensive cocktails and vinyl and shit, that's not anti-consumerist. That's just a different flavor of consumerism.
But before we get too deep into the mind of a hipster, let's explain how you'd go about identifying a hipster.
Okay, how do we identify a hipster?
Your typical hipster was a middle-class, white, 20 to 30-year-old. They were basically growing out of their emo phase and having to deal with the real world for the first time.
This is a very good observation. The emo kid or scene kid to hipster pipeline was very real. You would see this a million times. When they were in high school, they were a scene kid with, whatever, teased up pink hair and whatnot and snakebite piercings. Then they go off to college and they become a hipster. I saw it happen a million times.
Fashion was quintessential to hipsterism. Now, the way they dressed did vary quite a bit. However, there are a few iconic looks. So let's start with the fellas. For
they
haircut,
evolved like Pokemons,
yes. Have a man bun or a top knot. This tightly wound up, perfectly pristine look.
How awful is it when you see somebody now with a man bun? Isn't that brutal? You just want to take him aside and you want to be like, maybe you got knocked out and like frozen in a giant block of ice for the last 10 years, but it's not 2014 anymore, man. Just trust me, cut off the man bun. You'll thank me. You got to get yourself a fuckboy fade. The man bun is gone.
Looking bun. Receding hairlines of today have the man bun of yesterday to thank. However, if you weren't willing to spend a year looking homeless trying to grow out a man bun.
I like this. The homeless / hipster chart. They look the same, other than one of them is carrying a magazine, the other one has an iPod. This is one of those things like Adam Carolla talks about rich guy, poor guy, where there's things that super rich people and super poor people both do. For example, showering outdoors. Rich guy, poor guy. Works both ways.
Trying to grow out a man bun. There was always the slick back, the skin fade undercut, the quiff, the pompadour. Whatever you decided to choose, once the hours of work had gone into making your hair look perfect, be sure to then hide it away under a fedora.
There's so many different choices. I think that's very interesting. There's another one of my criticisms of hipsters is like, they're such shallow, superficial people. Like, so much of their identity revolves around their facial hair. Like grooming their zany mustache and their big, whatever, attention-seeking beard. What does it say about you as a person if your whole personality revolves around your fucking facial hair? You know, it's like a beard or a wacky mustache is not a substitute for a personality.
Or a fisherman beanie at all times, even when you're indoors. We then tie the whole look together with a perfectly maintained beard. And for the quirkiest of hipsters, you could even go for a moustache. And then to complete the look, obviously, you wear super skin-tight jeans, rolling up the very bottom to expose your ankle.
Oh, God. The zany socks, of course. They do a lot of peacocking. Right? With like the zany facial hair, the zany socks, the zany hat, a lot of peacocking where they really want to be noticed.
And then a nice pair of leather boots or some kind of smart shoe. So that's clothes out the way, but then we need to look in the hipsters.
Yeah, they want to be special and interesting.
A pack of tobacco for hand rolling
white people really want to be special and interesting, don't they? Because it's always fucking white people. Like white people in their 20s are the most like attention-seeking people. They all want to be different.
A little hip flask with a cute moustache on it, a hipster beard comb, and then perhaps
again with
the
beard
manifesto on Amazon Kindle, so you can read that while drinking a flat white at Starbucks. But now for the ladies.
I really only listen to like German death reggae and
girls with bangs. Watch out! Watch out!
The female-male hipster are fairly similar, but there were a few tweaks. So let's start with the haircuts. Hipster ladies loved having bangs, or a fringe as we'd call it in the UK. Sometimes you'd see it cut in an extremely neat.
What? Here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
The shorter the bangs, the crazier the girl. For example, this handy chart of turf bangs. I think this is Hayley Williams here. You know, these two, not so bad. I would proceed with caution. But then when we get up here, and then this one, it looks like she cut them with like school scissors in the middle of like a manic episode. That's when you need to just like dial 911 and run the other way. So my advice, my friends, if you want to chase girls with bangs, there's only one place that road leads to, and we know where it goes. Right to the zone of pain. That's where it goes.
Straight line. Subtly dyeing and changing hair color started to become popular with things like reds and purples. And then Rihanna shaved the side of her head, so that became popular. For clothing, it was more like vintage 50s women's workwear. The bold colors, the dresses, they look very quirky and well put together.
Very quirky. Yeah, very quirky. They want to look... See, again, why do white people always want to be quirky and interesting? I don't get it. Why? I always wanted to be normal and boring and unremarkable my whole life. I just wanted to fit in and just sort of, I don't want people to notice me. I just want to be normal because I'm weird. So I always wanted to be normal. These are like very bland, uninteresting people that want people to believe that they're different, but they're not different. They're not interesting people. That's the issue.
See, aesthetics is only one part of the hipster. There was something much more vital to the identity of a hipster than just their clothes. And that was that they absolutely hated mainstream culture.
Did I listen to pop music because I was miserable? Or was I miserable because I listened to pop music?
Oh my God, this movie, High Fidelity, oh my God. One of the most painful movies of all time. Like, it's sort of like American History X, where it was intended to be a cautionary tale of what an obnoxious douchebag all these people were, but instead, people took it as like an endorsement of this lifestyle.
This hatred for the mainstream would inform their taste on basically everything. Music, food, drink. If it was popular, hipsters didn't like it. If you loaded up your iPod in front of a hipster and showed them that you like Nickelback, they would have a visceral meltdown. They would spit their cappuccino all over you and then proceed to tell you why 80s African funk punk is the superior genre. However, this presented a problem for the hipster.
Wait, if everything in Portland is weird, isn't weird normal?
By the way, if you've ever seen Portlandia, that show was not an exaggeration. That show was basically a documentary of what Portland was like, you know, in the 2010s or 2000s, whatever. Like, Portlandia is just a documentary.
They were in this constant cycle of seeking out the most underground, the most core artists before they gained notoriety, got successful, and eventually weren't cool anymore. The hipster taste in music was pretty...
I agree with this. Hipster people want to be interesting because they have the character of Toast, because they haven't had the struggles that build character. That's what it is. That's the truth.
Broad, but a lot of it came down to indie and folk rock. You know, you'd have people like Mac DeMarco, Bon Iver.
It's Bon Iver.
Tame Impala, James Vincent McMorrow, Matt Corby, as well as a love for like older bands like the Smiths and the Cure.
I love the Smiths.
Oh.
Sorry?
I said I love the Smiths.
This scene is brutal. Look at him. Oh my God. How many people base their whole personality off of these characters in this movie?
There was a deep love for anything retro, antique, and outdated.
Yep. This is another thing that I've just never understood. So I grew up on welfare with a lot of old kind of, you know, vintage crappy stuff from like the 50s because my mom would get them from Goodwill and stuff like that. And because of that, I've always really liked new things. I don't like crappy old dirty things because that's what I grew up with. And I mean, it's not the end of the world, but like we always want the opposite of what we have, right? So if you grew up with old crappy things, you want nice new things. And if you grew up with nice new things, you like old crappy things. It's just sort of the human condition.
You know, vinyl players, fixed gear bikes, communism.
Reading a blog about the evils of corporate America? Oh, so true. Is that the new iPhone? Yeah, it's incredible.
Which, interestingly, Apple, despite being the biggest company on earth, they got a pass from the hipsters. I think probably because Steve Jobs was a hipster. But
yeah, he sure was a hipster. He was such a hipster that he refused to get treatment for cancer because he insisted on doing some like natural treatment for his cancer or something like that. So he hipstered himself to death. Literally hipstered himself to death.
You might be there wondering, what do hipsters do in their free time? A hipster would often be seen shopping at thrift stores or charity
shopping.
shops. Perhaps they would attend a local concert of a small indie rock band where they would
So this is their lifestyles. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be bitter. My criticism of hipsters, again, is that their lifestyles are based around consumption. Buying vinyl, buying vintage clothes, going to shows. It's sort of the lifestyle of the like basically like the privileged idle urban upper class. You know what I mean? Because if you're actually poor, you don't have time or money for this shit. Like you can't go out to this bar on a Thursday night and drop $80. And there's nothing wrong with having money, but the thing that irritated me about them is, you know, kind of that they're privileged, wealthy people that don't understand that they're privileged and wealthy. You know what I mean?
And quietly at the bar, too cool to dance, drinking their beloved IPA. Or if they felt like they needed to do some exercise, they might attend a yoga class with goats. Before going to an
I would go to yoga class
and
with goats.
The waiter,
You'd normally find them riding their fixie bikes beside the beach, eating organic vegetables, or shopping at garage sales.
By the late 2000s, the hipster wave was in full peak. And pop culture was starting to get hip to it, with many actresses, actors, and
the only thing I feel like is really missing from this is, and maybe because he's British, I don't know how big it was over there, but American Apparel, I think, was a really pivotal element of mid-2000s hipster culture. That was the brand that I think really mainstreamed a lot of that stuff.
Musicians who were kind of hipster. You had Zooey Deschanel, Jason Schwartzman, Shia LaBeouf.
Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it!
Hipsters somehow even started to enter the world of hip-hop. Some people actually call hipster hop, with artists like Pharrell Williams, Macklemore, and then Tyler, the Creator.
Call me wavy the way that I'm tapping you.
It's unfortunate that Tyler, the Creator, got thrown under the bus, caught astray here, getting lumped in with hipsters, because as much as he is an artsy weirdo, I'm pretty sure that Tyler, the Creator, probably hates hipsters with every ounce of his being. And if he asked him about hipsters, I feel like he'd probably have some choice words.
Like guns like I'm going to war with Africa. They got a problem.
And even the high streets were starting to change. Very famously, there was a cafe called the Serial Killer Cafe, which served cereal, which was pretty much the main talking point of every boomer conversation.
Hey, we're gonna
cereal. Oh, again, I'm trying to be nicer. I'm trying not to rant. Try not to rant and scream because I want you guys to like me more. The big issue with a lot of hipster men in particular is the arrested development. You know, guys like this, adults, like 28-year-old men eating cereal for dinner and, you know, collecting vintage toys and whatnot. And they still want to go out and party all the time into their 30s. It's the state of like perpetual arrested development. You know what I mean?
A bowl of cereal, but we're going to make it so expensive the poor people who live here can't buy it.
Not a single person would take the label as a hipster and wear it proudly. That's
why I've said I want to start identifying as a hipster.
Everyone hated hipsters. Even
oh,
hipsters
me? No, I'm a hipster.
Hipsters. They were known for having these snooty attitudes.
I'm definitely a hipster.
Superiority complex.
V, I don't know. Do you find yourself, are you a current person and you're like a trend slave?
And so,
yes.
Despite being
yes, I am. I'm a hipster.
Subculture,
self-identified
no one
hipster.
Identified as one. But there is a reason why no one said they were a hipster, and that's because it was antithetical to the ideology of being a hipster. Like if your whole identity was
I'm a proud hipster.
The idea of not conforming to a box, and you were rebelling against what was popular and mainstream, then how could you be a part of a trendy new subculture?
That's me. Anything trendy, that's me. Whatever hipsters are into, that's me.
And so, as hipster culture got bigger and bigger, it led to an existential crisis. They had become so predictably unique that they were no longer unique.
It's a good way to put it.
And so, it would be by the mid-2010s where we would finally reach the death of the hipster.
It's true.
A number of bloggers and journalists
So 2015 was the year that hipster died. That sounds about right to me, but I'd like to hear more.
announced the death of the hipster, claiming that it had become so mainstream it had effectively broken its desired purpose. The hipster had gone from this tiny niche subculture in the late 90s to early 2000s to now in 2020 where all of the tropes of hipsterism are just used to describe millennials. And so the term hipster became less and less used
like
as
avocado
mainstream
toast.
culture embraced its values. The hipster was meant to be very anti-capitalist.
The hipster these days is a capitalist. Cultural rebirth,
always were.
connectivity, and economic revival go hand in hand.
Their choices to move to low-income neighborhoods controversially led to gentrification. Now places like Shoreditch are very trendy and very wealthy. Their disdain for mass consumerism led to indie brands like Brewdog becoming
fucking $8 oat milk lattes. That used to be an exaggeration to say an $8 latte. It's not an exaggeration anymore. That's literally how much an oat milk latte costs now.
mass corporations. Their protests against unethical food led to things like Whole Foods.
Okay, and would you like to add a $1 donation to help hungry kids around the world?
Oh, no, that's okay.
I think hipsters get such a bad rap, so bad that I won't even look at this audience and judge. But I'm sure everyone in this audience is thinking, "Oh, I'm not a hipster though." Like everyone in my neighborhood's a hipster.
For the wider economy.
See, that's the difference between me and them. I proudly identify as a hipster. They're too cowardly to admit that they're hipsters, but not me. I say, if anyone raises their hand and say, "Is there a hipster in the crowd?" I'd say, "It's me. Right here. I'm the hipster. If you got any questions about being a hipster, just let me know. Be happy to answer all of them." That's me.
Economy and culture at large, hipsters did bring with them a lot of positives. What has now been dubbed the hipster economy has found unique ways of monetizing artistic pursuits. You know, tattoo artists, opening Etsy stores, graphic designers, commissioned graffiti artists, yoga instructors, artisan baristas.
But do we need that? That's my question. So, like, you know, saying thanks to hipsters, we've created things like artisanal baristas. Do we need that? You know, a lot of people think that I'm some kind of raging capitalist. I'm not. Like, I'm deeply critical of late capitalism. Does the world need $8 lattes? I don't think so. I don't think we need like all these, you know, artisanal, elevated fucking everything brands where it's just super expensive because some white person who lives in a high income area like South Lake Union or Williamsburg made it. I don't think we need that.
Global specialist coffee market is expected to grow $80.7 billion US. By 2027, the organic food market is expected to be worth $272.
By the way, so he said that the organic food market is now worth $270 billion. You know who sells more organic food than anybody else on the planet? Walmart. It's a fact. So if you want to talk about who is really driving the organic food market, it's not hipsters, it's fucking Walmart.
And the craft beer market is now worth $29.3 billion. Hipsters are very entrepreneurial. They've been the driving force behind
because they're all capitalists.
Culture, ethical and locally sourced products, and even mainstream interior design has been no doubt influenced by hipsters.
Absolutely.
Bullshit. Derivative.
At this point,
that's me when I go to an art gallery. I'm actually a huge snob because, as I've said before, I did go to art school, so I have a lot of opinions on fine art, and this is me when I go to an art gallery.
Bullshit. Derivative.
At this point now in 2023, hipsters are so intertwined with mainstream culture, you can't consider it a subculture. It can definitely be argued that hipsters are now evolving into a new growing subculture, which many people refer to as woke or wokeism, with its followers being wokies, I don't know, which I believe has also spawned a counterculture to that movement, which you could probably call traditionalists. However, that's a topic for another video.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Like, wokies are the new hipsters. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to get political, but we are all going to point and laugh at the wokies in like 5 years, just the same as we point and laugh at all the fucking mustache twirling trolley conductor hipsters from 2013. We're going to look at all these blue-haired fucking TikTok wokies and laugh at them just like we did the hipsters.
I do have a soft spot for hipsters. Like, I can't deny it. I was definitely a hipster. I was one of the hipsters that hated mainstream hipsters. I remember specifically disliking Tyler, the Creator, because he was so popular. All this stuff comes around because young people are always trying to work out who they are. And it's often very easy to create an identity based on the things that you aren't as opposed to the things that you are. But as time passes, you realize more and more that disliking things doesn't make you an interesting person.
This is true, and I realize the irony of me saying that on a video about how much I dislike hipsters. I recognize that, but it's true. Disliking mainstream stuff doesn't make you cool. Does not.
I'm here in 2023 and tell you I like Justin Bieber. I like Calvin Harris. I like Tyler, the Creator. A fact that 18-year-old me would
Justin Bieber is great.
You can argue that the more radical side of the woke culture or the cancel culture stuff probably came from hipsters. But a lot of hipster culture has been very beneficial to the modern world. Be sure to join me on the Afters podcast where we discuss...
Okay. I like it. Jimmy the Giant, laying it down. Great take, as always. I would have liked to see him go a little bit harder on hipsters, but I get it. Unlike me, Jimmy is a nice person. He's not an asshole like me. So overall, I think a great take. I was going to say, thank God hipsters died in 2015, but then I remembered what replaced them might be even worse, which is the blue-haired Twitter woke people who are probably worse than hipsters ever were. So the lesson is, be careful what you ask for. Because you just might get it. And I will take the barista hipsters over the Twitter wokies any day of the week. That's right. The devil you know is better than the one you don't. So I guess this video did change my mind. I say, bring back hipsters. I miss you. I welcome 2013 bacon, beard, fixed gear hipsters with open arms. Anything is better than the Twitter wokies. Please. Bring back the hipsters. That is all I ask.